everybody. Cheers. Tonight's brew of choice is a Sam Adams Cold Snap. Very good winter brew. Happy holidays, everybody. Tonight is officially Christmas Eve. So if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate other holidays, happy holidays to you as well. It's a great time of the year. I love this time of the year. Of course, it's not as good as it's been in the past because of the current events of 2020 and COVID and all that. My family is not that big, so usually we have maybe 25, 30 people at our holiday gatherings. But there were several people we weren't able to see this year because of COVID, so that sucks. But I just got back from visiting some family this evening and decided that tonight I'm in the holiday spirit, I'm in the end of the year spirit. I'm going to make my top 10 albums list. And so that's what this video is going to be, my list of the top 10 albums, for me, my favorites of 2020. I almost said 2016. It'd be really bad if I was 4 years behind. But no, 2020. Yes. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get into that. Before I get started with my list, I want to go ahead and remind everybody that this is my own personal list. This is my favorite albums. I'm sure many of the albums that I put on my list will not be on yours, and that's perfectly fine. I'm sure if you all make lists, some of my albums might be on there, but others probably won't. So, like I said, it's my own personal opinion. It's not the albums that I think are the best albums that were ever made this year. I'm not an expert, and I didn't listen to anything, or to everything that was released this year. It's just physically impossible to do that. So, I will say that I have very genre-specific interests, so a lot of my stuff comes from the punk world, obviously, considering my channel name, The Nerdy Punk, but also the alternative world, the indie world, and it's sprinkling of hip-hop. So stay tuned for that as we go through this list. Throughout the video, I'm going to try to play some clips from albums, and I'm going to put the album art up in the top corner here for each record, so you can kind of see what the artwork is, listen to it, etc. Before I get into that, one more thing that I wanted to mention. So on my Spotify account, if you use Spotify, I have created 2 playlists that you guys might be interested in checking out. The first one is my top songs of 2020. So there's many songs on there that I'm not going to talk about for albums in this video. There's some artists that just released singles this year. There's like Billy Joe Armstrong put out a covers album. I didn't really consider a covers album for this list. So those songs, some of those songs are on there, but it's just my favorite like 30, 40 songs of the year. So definitely check that out. I'll leave the link to that in the description. I also created my holiday playlist. So if you're in for some punk rock, some rock and roll, Christmas music, check that out. I'll put the link to that in the description below. So, alright, that's out of the way. Let's get into the honorable mentions for the top albums of 2020. Alright, so first honorable mention, I have 5 of them. So, my first one is AC/DC with Power Up. AC/DC came back this year. They brought back the original, well, not the original, obviously, because Malcolm Young has passed away, but for the most part, the original lineup of AC/DC. Axl Rose, of course, filled in on the tour for Brian Johnson last time when Brian Johnson had his hearing issues, but he came back and sung on this record, and I thought it was really good. Solid. It's exactly what you'd expect from an AC/DC record. Nothing like amazing, like groundbreaking or anything. I mean, these guys they know their formula. They've been a band for, 50 years now, almost. So, yeah, you know what you're going to get, but it was really well executed, very catchy, very good rock and roll. So, AC/DC's Power Up. Second honorable mention is All Time Low with their record Wake Up Sunshine. I think this is one of the best All Time Low records ever that they've ever put out. And that's saying something considering we're, 15, 20 years into their careers. I feel like their last few albums have been pretty mediocre to bad, but this record really felt like a return to form and a comeback record. And it was a great record to listen to during the summer, even though it came out early on in the year. It was a very summer vibe record, so I really enjoyed that one. Third honorable mention is the NoFX and Frank Turner split record, West Coast versus Wessex. And this was, you had Frank Turner covering NoFX songs on one side of the record, and then you have NoFX covering Frank Turner songs. And I really enjoyed how they approached the covers. The NoFX versions of Frank Turner sound like, NoFX's own spin, as well as Frank Turner's versions of NoFX songs sound completely different, mostly from the NoFX stuff. You have some fast-paced NoFX songs kind of slowed down, put in an acoustic situation, which I found really interesting. Bob, in particular, the NoFX song Bob, which Frank Turner covered, that version from Frank Turner is really good, but it's completely different from the original material. So it's not like they just basically carbon copied the artist's version of the songs. They made it their own, which I really enjoyed. So yes, I'm actually going to go ahead and real quick play you a clip. I have a needle drop of NoFX's cover of Frank Turner's Thatcher Fucked the Kids.
Whatever happened in childhood, we're all scared of the kids in our neighborhood. They're not small, charming and harmless. They're a violent bunch of busted little shit.
Alright, next honorable mention is Miley Cyrus. Never in my life would I imagine putting a Miley Cyrus record on my top of the year list. But 2020, what are you going to do? 2020 was such a weird year. And Miley Cyrus put out a rock and roll record. Now, maybe my rock and roll purists wouldn't really agree with me in the fact that it's good, but I thought it was really good. And I found it really refreshing to see a modern top 40 artist putting out rock music with instruments and guitars and drums. And I just found it super refreshing. And is it the best rock and roll record I've ever heard? Absolutely not. But it's a really good record, and I recommend everybody checking it out, even if you're kind of iffy on the Miley Cyrus thing. But I really enjoyed that record. Had to give it an honorable mention. And then last honorable mention is Bad Cop, Bad Cop, with their album The Ride. Came out this year on Fat Records. I loved this record so much. It was a band that I just discovered this year. So Bad Cop has been around for a few years, but I just discovered them this year, and I fell in love with their music. They're an all-girl punk band, which I find really cool, and they write amazing lyrics, really good lyrics, a lot of political stuff, a lot of feminist stuff, obviously stuff that I agree with, so I gravitate towards it. And I'm going to play you a clip of one of the songs off The Ride, which is called The Pursuit of Liberty, that I really dig. So go ahead and play that, and then we'll get into the list.
Passports without the right stamps set people back to concentration camps. No sign of future, no guarantees, yet they still risk it all to save their families. What kind of world do we live in where this is okay? Borders are baseless, it's one human race.
Okay, now for the actual list itself. So starting out with number 10, we have an absolute icon in Ozzy Osbourne with his album Ordinary Man. Now, Ozzy put out an incredible album early this year. He actually dropped a couple of singles in the fall of 2019. Had me super hype for what the record was going to be, and it lived up to my expectations. There are a couple songs in there that I feel are kind of filler, but for the most part, this record was incredible. Of course, he also dropped a collaboration with Post Malone last fall, and that kind of got him some more mainstream attention again. I think it was the first Ozzy Osbourne song to chart on the pop charts in decades, and to me that's partly a sad state of music today, but it's also kind of a cool story. And I actually don't mind Post Malone. And of all the modern artists, popular artists, I think he actually has some talent. So, I don't want to constantly shit on popular music. I just don't think it's nearly as good as rock and punk and all this underground stuff. Sorry. So, yeah, but really to me, the lyrically, this record was fantastic. Instrumentally, it was great. Of course, Ozzy is just a legend. But to me, this record really felt almost like a goodbye record. And I know it's not, because I know he's already planning on releasing another record as a follow-up to this. But the lyrics really feel introspective and kind of like he's facing his own mortality. And maybe that comes from his diagnosis with Parkinson's and stuff like that. So maybe he's kind of dealing with that there. I mean, the guy is in his 70s, but to me that kind of gives the record the weight that it needs to have a whole lot of meaning behind it, other than just being a kick-ass Ozzy metal record. Also, one more quick thing with this record, I was supposed to see Ozzy Osbourne and Marilyn Manson in St. Louis this summer, and of course, that got canceled even before COVID happened. But another casualty of 2020 to COVID was my being able to see Ozzy Osbourne. So, yet another thing to fuck 2020. Go fuck yourself. You terrible year. All right, number 9. At number 9, we have Hot Mulligan with their album You'll Be Fine. This was released on July 24th via No Sleep Records. And Hot Mulligan is a great emo punk band from Michigan. And I actually discovered this band before they became big because I have some friends who are huge fans of this band. And I've been to see Hot Mulligan 2 times, something like that. I've seen them multiple times with my friends. And they always put on a hell of a show. Very energetic. They usually scream their vocals. Not in the sense like a death metal scream, but like the emo scream. And I really like their energy. I like their lyrics. I just like their overall vibe. And this is maybe their best record to date. So I had to put them on the list. Let's go ahead and listen to a quick clip from a song on this record. It's called Dirty Office Bongos.
It's hard to say, I know I'm fucked up again. I don't mean to neglect it. An invitation, an open hand to pull me out from this pit. I don't wanna disappoint you.
Okay, number 8 on the list is The Strokes with The New Abnormal. This was released on April 10th via RCA. And The Strokes, of course, one of the biggest alternative bands out there from the 2000s, and then of course up until the present day, but the 2000s was when they really hit their prime. And yet again, we have an older band that's releasing one of their best albums this year. I think that's going to be a recurring theme with this list. 2020, I feel like, was a shit year for humanity, but a great year for music. And there's lots of older bands that I feel like released one of the best albums of their discography this year. And The Strokes is definitely one of them. I'm not a huge Strokes fan, but when this album dropped, I gave it a few listens. It took me a while to get into, but I really got Radiohead vibes from this record. And of course, Radiohead's one of my top 10 favorite bands of all time. So just with the artwork, the feel, the electronic nature of the music, the synth, I got some Radiohead vibes, and I really, really loved it and dug it quite a bit. The lead single, The Adults Are Talking, is one of the best songs of the year, in my opinion. So yes, The Strokes with The New Abnormal. Coming in at number 7 is The Network with Money Money 2020 Part 2 We Told You So. That is a huge title. The network is a side project of Green Day. The members of Green Day don't actually admit that it's a side project, but part of the shtick of this side project is that they all wear masks or face coverings of some type. There's another thing that I've noticed every time in a video that I say masks. Now that's kind of taken on a new meaning in 2020, but of course they wear like, one of them wears like a, what do you call it? The Mexican wrestler. I don't know what you call them, but he's got that mask. Trey Cool wears that type of mask. Not like the surgical mask that we all have to wear now, but you know what I mean. So part of the shtick is that they hide their identities, and the network is more of a new wave inspired electronic sounding project from Green Day, and I thought this record was light years better than Green Day's official release in 2020, which was Father of All Motherfuckers. I liked that record. There's a lot of Green Day fans that hated it. I enjoyed it. There's some songs that I think are really solid, and I've put some of those songs on my top songs of the year playlist. But I don't feel like that record was as good and as quality as a lot of Green Day's releases in the past. And I enjoyed this a lot more. I felt like this was a lot more authentic and less produced sound. The one thing that I would say with this record is that I think it's too long. This record, I think, has over 20 songs. Now, a lot of them are very short, 1 to 2 minutes max, but I still feel like it feels overwhelming, and it feels daunting to listen to. Even though it's less than an hour, because there's so many songs, it just feels draining to listen to it. So I feel like they would have been much better served to trim this down a bit. That being said, the cuts that stand out are really, really good quality. And I'm going to play you a clip of the lead single from this record, which is called Ivanka is a Nazi. So let's listen to that, and then we'll be back. My number 6 album of 2020 is The Killers with Imploding the Mirage, released on August 21st on Island Records. Speaking of older bands that are releasing one of the best albums in their catalog, this was an incredible record by The Killers. I feel like every Killers record is good, but there's a few that stand out. Hot Fuss, obviously, Sam's Town, and I feel like this one is going to stand out, Imploding the Mirage. Just littered with great songs. Of course, the lead single, Caution, was all over the radio. Very well deserved of that. I feel like a lot of songs are just overplayed for no good reason. This song, incredibly catchy, very good lyrics. They brought in Lindsey Buckingham, who I believe is the guy from Fleetwood Mac. If there's any Fleetwood Mac fans, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I think that's what he was doing. I do know he's a legendary guitar player, and he played one of the solos on this record, on Caution, which is an incredible song. Speaking of great songs, also on this track list, you've got Blowback, which I'm actually going to play you a clip of in a second, and you have Dying Breed, which is great. Lightning Fields featuring Katie Lang, which is an amazing song as well. A great love song. So yes, great songs up and down the track listing. And the Killers are actually already working on another album to follow this up. So we'll see how that is next year. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play you a quick clip from Blowback, and then we'll get into the top 5.
She's reaching for a backpack, puts out a cigarette and gets on the bus. She's sitting on a secret she didn't ask for. No girl ever
Cheers, everybody. We are into the top 5, halfway through. Number 5, we have Anti-Flag with 2020 Vision, released on January 17th through their own label, AF Records. Anti-Flag always brings it with great stuff, hard-hitting political lyrics, and this album is really their organized takedown of Trump and politics in America in the age of Trump, which thankfully is coming to an end. I don't usually get into a whole lot of political stuff, but I mean, I do not like the man. That's putting it very mildly. I'm very thankful that we chose to get rid of him in November. But anyway, not going down that rabbit hole right now. But I feel like with Anti-Flag, you really have to talk about it because it's front and center. They believe what they believe, and they make no bones about it, which I really respect. And I think even if you come from the conservative side, you could respect that, sticking to your guns and, strongly believing something as opposed to just, passively going along with it, If you've actually taken the time to think about the issues and come up with your opinion, I have a lot of respect for you, even if you disagree with me. But Anti-Flag definitely, very strong opinions, and they put it out there front and center. And it's not like they're propaganda for the Democratic Party or anything. They criticize, the Democrats just as much as they criticize the Republicans. It's about the problems that they see with American culture, and it can also go beyond politics. A lot of their songs, maybe not necessarily on this record, but kind of like their older songs deal with things like the music industry, the beauty industry, with their hit song, This Is the End for You, My Friend, really goes after the beauty industry and how it preaches to kids that you have to be skinny and you have to be this in order to be attractive. And, those kinds of things, that they really go after what they see as wrong with American culture and try to fix it. And I really appreciate that. Aside from just their lyric content, the instrumentals are fantastic. Really hard-hitting stuff, good stuff, catchy stuff. I'm going to go ahead and play you a quick clip of the opening song off of the record. And just so you know, this is how the record starts out. So I'm going to do a needle drop, very beginning of the record. Hate Conquers All is the song.
In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, they would not do it again so easily.
Hate conquers all in the ashes of the fall. With our backs against the wall, with our backs against the wall. Watch the empire fall, watch the nation dissolve. With our backs against the wall, with our...
All right, making our way to number 4, we have Laura Jane Grace with her solo record, Stay Alive. This was released on October 1st on Polyvinyl Record Company. Now, what I find interesting is, if I have this correct, Laura Jane Grace wrote a lot of the lyrics for this record pre-COVID, and a lot of these albums were written pre-COVID, not in the current world that we're living in now with coronavirus and stuff, but obviously tons of lyrics that you can read into in relation to quarantine and the spread of disease and that kind of thing, caring for our fellow men, and trying to just simply stay alive, to keep your head above water and continuing to fight to just stay alive. And that's something I think a lot of us can relate to in 2020. So definitely timely lyrics, especially with the song Hanging Tree. Hanging Tree has incredibly timely lyrics for the state of U.S. politics in 2020. So I definitely recommend that one. Just a great kind of stripped down record. This was recorded with my knowledge of just Laura Jane Grace and Steve Albini, who produced it in Chicago. And so it definitely sounds more stripped down, more acoustic than an Against Me record would. And it actually kind of sort of reminds me of the early Against Me stuff, when it was mainly just Laura Jane Grace and an acoustic guitar. And it kind of reminds me of that, but it's maybe missing a little bit of the anger and the angst from the early Against Me stuff. But it kind of replaced that with kind of this subdued sense of positivity, despite a bleak world that we're living in, and a difficult world to live in. And so I really, really enjoyed this record. I think it's relevant as ever, and I definitely recommend giving it a listen. I am going to play you a clip from the record. I forget which song I chose. Anyway, I'll write that down on the screen. Let's listen to Laura Jane Grace with Stay Alive.
Blood and thunder, south wind coming up western. Simple as heaven, your love is all I need.
All right, moving into number 3. Number 3 is Run the Jewels with RTJ4, released on June 3rd on BMG. This, I believe, is the highest a hip-hop record has ever ranked on my year-end countdown lists, and with good reason. This is one of the best hip-hop albums I've ever heard. The lyrics are amazing, as always, with Run the Jewels. One of the things I really like about Run the Jewels is they're what we call conscious rap. So a lot of my problem with modern rap music is that it just seems to glorify drugs, violence, sex, and in terms of drugs, I don't really want to get on the bandwagon of making someone feel bad because they're addicted to drugs or something, but it's definitely not something you want to go down that road. And there's obviously nothing wrong with enjoying sex and enjoying things that are good about life, but I just feel like there's not a whole lot of substance there. And Run the Jewels is a conscious rap group that talks about real issues that are impacting people and human beings. And they talk about all kinds of things like systemic racism, police brutality, poverty, and all the things that come with that, and basically all the struggles that people are going through. And I actually discovered this group through Killer Mike, and Killer Mike was really vocal in supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016, and I was a huge Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, and so I followed the campaign very closely and discovered Killer Mike through that. I think he had an interview with Bernie, and then I went back and listened to his solo stuff, and then found out that he was in Run the Jewels, and started just eating that up like candy. Like, I loved the stuff. But I also do love, they will balance the conscious stuff, the heavy stuff, the important stuff, and then they'll throw in a little bit of the fun, just, jokes in there as well to kind of keep it balanced. It doesn't feel too overbearing with the serious stuff, but it's not all ridiculous, meaningless either. So I really like the balance they find there. The clip that I'm going to play you from this record is from the song Walking in the Snow, which I feel like is the best on the record. And it features the most important verse, I think, released in any song this year. And it's written and performed by Killer Mike. And I'm going to play you most of that verse. And it deals with police brutality and all of the system of oppression that affect minority groups in the United States. And I just want to kind of, before you guys listen to it, I want to kind of preface this by saying how important it is, and how much I could never, whatever I say could never summarize what Killer Mike is trying to say. So you know what, I'm just going to kind of shut up and play it for you, let you listen to Killer Mike. This is a needle drop on the song Walking in the Snow by Run the Jewels.
Around the age of 5, you shipped away from your body to be stored. They promise education, but really they give you tests and scores. And they predict the prison population about who's scoring the lowest. And usually the lowest scores the poorest, and they look like me. And every day on the evening news, they feed your fear for free. And you so numb, you watch the cops choke out a man like me. Until my voice goes from a shriek to whisper, I can't breathe.
Okay, all the way down to number 2. My number 2 record of 2020 is We Are Chaos by Marilyn Manson. This was released on September 11th through Loma Vista Recordings. I'm a huge Marilyn Manson fan. I have been since, I think, 2016 was when I first got into Marilyn Manson, and I love his stuff. He's just such a unique artist, very, very good music, but very great lyrics. I love his lyrics. They're like poetry. You could read them for hours and get new meanings from them. I think he's a smart dude. He really summarizes feelings well. And this record, I think, may be his most personal out of all of his records. A lot of his earlier stuff, like Antichrist Superstar, was based on criticizing American society. This, I think, is more personal, more kind of an introspective look at his past relationships. And this was also produced by Shooter Jennings, who kind of added in a little bit of a country sound into Marilyn Manson's sound. This does not sound like Toby Keith, so don't think that. But it just kind of adds a grungier, countrified, if that's a word, sound to incorporate with the metal, industrial metal of Marilyn Manson. A lot of people won't like this record because they thought it was too poppy or it sounded too soft for Marilyn Manson. This is definitely the softest record, and I don't like using that term because people think that's bad. It's not. It's really good, and I think the sound really fits the lyrical composition really well. And it's some of the most unique stuff from Marilyn Manson, a guy who's maybe the most unique person in music, putting out this really unique sounding for him record. And so I'm going to go ahead and play you a quick clip from the song Paint You With My Love by Marilyn Manson. We made it to number 1. Cheers, everybody. Alright, my number 1 record of 2020. Drum roll, please. My number 1 record is Spanish Love Songs with their release Brave Faces Everyone. Released on February 20th via Pure Noise Records. Wow, this album, I've seen it on other people's top lists, so if you've checked it out, you know what I'm talking about. This is maybe the heaviest record I've ever listened to. The only thing that I could describe this to lyrically is if anybody listened to Fat Mike's solo effort, Cokie the Clown, if you listened to that record last year, this is just as dark as that record. And because of that, I could see this as not being for everybody. But if you've ever suffered through depression or anxiety, you can relate to this album. Maybe a bit too much. Now, I don't think I've ever been in as bad of a place as the lead singer of this band was in when he wrote this record. It's very difficult. Lots of lyrics about depression, self-destructive habits, suicide, losing people to suicide, anxiety, panic disorders. I mean, all kinds of mental health issues that this guy was dealing with and is still dealing with. And I think this is maybe the second most important record to come out this year. I think the Run the Jewels record is maybe the most important, simply because it's dealing with the societal issues that are facing us in 2020, namely systematic racism and police brutality. But this record, I feel like, is going to touch so many people's lives, like it touched my life. and I really want people to listen to it. So definitely go check this out. This is Spanish love song with Brave Faces, everyone. If you've ever gone through this stuff, you will form a connection with it. And like the Cokie the Clown record, the reason why I didn't have as favorable opinion of that one is because, yes, it was personal, yes, it was heavy, but it also had a very somber tone to it as well. So I just feel like that album as a whole was just like a downer. This one, because it's got those emo guitars and drums and that sound, that instrumental, that's very upbeat and heavy, I feel like it brings it up a bit, and it makes it more listenable. And I don't think this is an album like you're gonna, if you're cruising in the car on a summer day and just chilling, I don't think you're gonna put this on because of the lyrical content. But I feel like this is way more listenable than something like Cokie the Clown. And that's no dig on him, because I love that record too for different reasons. But this album is listenable, but it's very important lyrically. I'm going to play you a clip from the song Losers 2, which deals with poverty and losing money in the financial crash and how that affects you. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play that clip, and then I'll be back to wrap up the video. Okay, hope you all enjoyed this video, my top 10 albums of 2020. I really enjoyed putting this together. I feel like 2020 was overall a much better year for music than 2019. I still enjoyed some of the records that came out in 2019, and I still revisit the albums on that list quite often, but I feel like this year there were so many great records, and I really look forward to see what's going to happen in 2021, seeing how the issue of coronavirus progresses. We finally have a vaccine, so I'm hoping that we can get this virus fought off by the end of the year next year. But I'm also interested in seeing how it affects music. I know one of the worst parts of this year has been not being able to go to concerts, and I can't wait to get back into a concert again. It will be a great experience for sure, but I'm interested to see how this impacts music and what kind of music is going to come out of this, because I think every difficult situation humanity has been in, music has helped us, and it always helps me get through the tough times. So I hope you all have an amazing holiday season. I hope you're staying safe. So I will talk to you guys later. Again, happy holidays. Bye.